Hey guys, I'm going to tie up a version of the kilowatt fly today. It's a little bit different. When I first did my Alaska fishing trip, I heard about the kilowatt, and then there was a very full version of the kilowatt, changing up the materials a little bit, that got called the Megawatt. And essentially what I did was I tried to articulate the Megawatt, and I'm going to call it the Gigawatt without any right to. It's not my pattern. But I thought I would show this articulated version and take you guys through it. So right now I have on a Gamakatsu stinger hook, an octopus hook, size 1. And I'll show the list of materials at the end. So I'm going to lay down a thread base. I'm using 100 denier, I'm using 210 Danville thread, and I'm going to lay down a solid thread base because I'm going to put a little glue on it here in a minute. And so I've come back and I'm going to come forward just a little bit, and I have a black rabbit strip, and I'm going to put on the back side of that, about an inch past the tie-in point, which, by the way, is I'm going to make it kind of right about that hook point. So I'm going to tie in there, and once again, I'm going to have about an inch of an overhang. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in there, separate that out. See that that's about right. So I do 2 over, 1 under to lock it down, 1 over, 1 under. At this point, I'm going to travel my thread to the front, leave a little bit of a gap so I don't crowd the eye, and I'm going to take a little Zappa gap . And I'm going to put it on there. It's just going to give me a little assist holding that rabbit strip down. And there we go. Once again, I'm going to take my bodkin, my needle, two over, 1 under to lock it down. I'm going to go 1 more over, then lock her down. And we'll whip finish. I'm going to do 2 sets of 5. And I will hold it down. Last little bit of zap-a-gap. There we go. There we go. We'll let that dry for just a second. I do have some activator if we need to hurry it up. Next, I'm going to take some 40-pound Spectra, about 6 inches. There we go. So there's the back half of our articulated kilowatt. We'll set that down for a minute. Right now I got a little over a 6mm bead slotted on a 26-degree bend hook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some 020 wire and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2. And this distance here is about what I need to tie that rabbit strip in. So this is a heavily weighted fly, and I'm doing that because I use the barbell eyes to indicate it's a little bit lighter. Yeah, that's actually a little better. That gives me a little more room to tie in the rabbit strip. So I've seated that bead with that 020 wire. And that's for all the Euro nymphers out there, seating a slotted bead. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lock that lead in place, and I'm going to create a little bit of a ramp to it, and then I'm on it. That bead is tungsten. So when I tie this fly, I'll either use barbell eyes or the tungsten bead. And for my sake, I know that if I've used the tungsten bead, that I've put a lot of lead wire, so I've got a heavily weighted fly depending on the water conditions. If I need a little bit lighter weight on the fly, I put the barbell, so when I open my box I can say, well, which do I do? Now that we've got that on there, we're going to take our stinger hook and we're going to tie her in here. And I'm going to get a couple of wraps before I start. Now what I do to get my distance right, I'll pull that stinger till it's just kind of touching on the tangent of the bend. Just kind of touching down there on the tangent of the bend. There you go. And now I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap forward all the way, keeping those, keeping that spectra in line. I'm not going to let it cross over. So I keep a nice, constant, uniform cross-section on my fly. I don't know that the fish care. Now, as I'm starting to come near that bead, I've gone all the way up. And what I'm going to do is pull my spectra back, and I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap all the way back. And that spectra's on the side now. And so it's just kind of holding a nice constant cross section, no big bumps other than where my lead is. Boom. There we go. Now, when we tie this rabbit in, I want to take all the slack out because I don't want that rabbit to take any load when the fish hits. I want this spectra to take all the load. So my rabbit, when I tie it in, I'm going to put a little bit of slack in there so that it doesn't take any load. That spectra is going to take all the strain of the hit. And I'm going to cut this off. And here we go. A little bit more. There. Like so, you'll notice there's a little bit of slack in that rabbit fur. And I'm going to take that all the way up to my lead. There. There we go. Now, Guys at Alaska Fly Fishing Goods. Liquid thread. So the way that I came up with this pattern is input from a few people, and they probably are going to cringe if I give them credit saying I never told them to do that. But one came from the guys up in Alaska Fly Fishing Goods. They have talked to me about the techniques, how to tie in. Two came from a guy that I met on an Alaska trip, Bob Erickson. And three, some of the guys at Wild River Fish Guiding Service, and that would be Pete and I think it's John Grisham. I think that's right. And so, yeah, there we go. Now, we've got that, and I put a Zap-A-Gap all the way, make it very secure. And the other thing I can do now is on my hook holder, I have put a little spectral loop. There we go. There. And a little bit of Flashaboo. And I'm going to take, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 strands. 6 strands, 10 strands. I'm going to tie it in, and I'm going to tie it to the length of the that tail. And so a little bit of spit on it to try to get it to hold. There we go. There. Ouch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to wrap it over. And so this way, if that big old silver catches that, he doesn't pull it out. So now I've got some nice Flashaboo in there, probably about 10 strands. And I'm going to put an EP brush in there. And this is black and blue. Maybe it's purple, but black and blue. And this was my favorite color. This is kind of my go-to. I've only been to Alaska twice, and both times this was the dominant color. And in fact, this version of the Kilowatt, I was on a trip, and I met a gentleman there, and they were hitting my fly pretty hard, pretty consistently, and he was doing another week with guys at Alaska Fly Fishing Good, the guys at Wild River Fish, and I gave him 3 or 4 of these flies because it was fishing so well. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop my thread a little before the bead, and it's because I don't want to crowd the eye, because I've got some collars I've got to do up there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stroke those fibers back so that they don't lay on top of each other.
fight my urge to crowd the eye. So I went 1, 2, and then 2. So I've locked it down. Have a pair of dikes from Ace Hardware. There we go. There we go. Now we're going to put 2 collars on this. So I've created a dubbing loop. And I'm using Ice Dub Shimmer Fringe. This is blue. There's a dark blue, which I guess I like a little better. But also, in my dubbing loop, I'm using a hook because, by the way, before I start that, let's put a little wax on there. Let it hold a little better. Spread that out. I generally like to have that dubbing loop about 6 or 7 inches. Generally, I guess about 6. And I'll hold it at the bottom there. Spin that. And you'll notice that I haven't really spun my loop yet. There she goes. And I got my little brush. Start picking it out a little bit. Here we go. That first turn or 2 isn't as important because I'm not to the material yet. There now. So I'm going to a little bit spin on my fingers, pull those fibers back. There we go. Hitting the camera. There. Now we got this nice contrast of colors. I mean, you got the black, then you kind of got that UV black in the EP brush. And here we go. 1, 2. And so let's get a blue collar here on the throat. Double that up. We're going to work our way back so that when this throat gets tied, it gets a little backward component. And at this point, you can, we want to have one last collar, and there's a couple of materials that I use. One is guinea feather, and the other is another brush, about an inch long. And so I'm going to use that brush because I like it. And I've got the wire of the brush going right into the crack of that bead. And I ought to have one, two. That's all. Two. I'm going to go three just because I don't feel like I seated it in there. There we go. One, two. Whip finish. Rank amateur. I'll pull that one tight. Do that again. And there we go. Now that he's free, we can get that throat lined up. Want that to be about the same length as the tail. And that guy right there, I think that that's what it's all about, that little bit of action. This articulated version did a lot better. The areas that we fish in Alaska only allow one hook on a line at a time. So that expensive 26-degree bend hook that I started with, and cut it off, and there you go. There's the an articulated kilowatt. And if I've offended the guys who designed this fly by my poor tying skills, I apologize. Well, but I can tell you that this guy caught a lot of coho last time. One last thing I guess I will show. You see the little gap there? What I do, now in this case, I'm going to use UV orange, and I'm going to fill that guy in with a little bit of UV orange. And nine, 10. And I'm going to take a little Zap-A-Gap. In this case, I wish I had put two whip finishes on it. 5 deep. I only did one that was 2 deep and one that was 5. So, well, thanks a lot, guys. That's it.